Thank you for joining, everybody. This is our final ACE venture of the season. We're super stoked to have it. Thank you to Procore and Kevin so much for getting this started. And with that, I will turn it over to Kevin to introduce what's happening today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Paulette. So my name is Kevin. I work for Procore, and we are a construction technology company headquartered in Southern California. We work with clients all over the world to help them manage their construction projects using our software. And I work specifically on the Procore.org team, which is Procore's social impact team. We partner with the ACE Mentor program all over the US to provide free Procore accounts to help students learn our software. So if you're interested in getting set up with a free Procore account, please have your ACE Mentor reach out to us at www.procore.org and we can get them set up. And with that, I just wanted to say that I'm so excited about today's ACE venture, and I wanted to introduce our presenters, Julie Giese and Mark Bailey. Julie is the president of the Phoenix Racetrack, and she's had an incredible career working on large renovation projects for racetracks like the Talladega Superspeedway and the Daytona International Speedway. Mark is the director of business development for the Phoenix Racetrack, and he's worked for the Daytona track and the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, California, prior to joining the team in Phoenix. So thank you so much, Julie and Mark, for joining us, and I'll turn things over to you.
Great, thanks, Kevin. And thank you, Paulette, for putting all this together. So just like Kevin mentioned, my name is Mark Bailey. I work at our track here at Phoenix Raceway, alongside Julie here, who leads the entire team here at the track. But what I'm going to do today is take you through a quick presentation of who we are, what we do, but really dig into more of our relationship with the Okland Construction team here in Phoenix and how we brought $178 million renovation to our venue to life. So I'm going to share my screen here and we'll start going through some things. Phoenix Raceway was built in 1964, and throughout the years, we did a lot of different upgrades, building new grandstands and new garages and all the different stuff around property. But in 1988 is when we started racing the NASCAR Cup Series level, which is the top level of NASCAR. And then what we'll get into here in a little bit is the Phoenix Raceway project that we'll dig into further. Here in Phoenix, we host two NASCAR events each year. One is the Spring NASCAR event weekend, which actually just happened this past weekend here in Phoenix. Phenomenal weather in March, and it was a great event for us. And then we also host the NASCAR Championship weekend each year in November. So you'll notice all of the NASCAR related events that we do throughout the year. But a little known fact is, a lot of folks think that we just do NASCAR and host those events, but we're actually operational over 200 days throughout the year with different private testing on the manufacturer side, commercial shoots, stock car racing programs. The ability to come on site and ride a Segway on a tour around our property is pretty cool. A lot of community events that we have to really connect to our local community. Anyways, we're operational and busy throughout the entire calendar year, which is Phoenix is a huge market, not only for NASCAR, but overall in the States, of course. So we're very fortunate to be able to pull a lot of our fans from the Arizona area, as well as all throughout the Southwest and really from a national footprint there. And these are some cool kind of demographics that we can share with you after this presentation that you can dig into a little bit more. Like I mentioned, a lot of our fan base will travel from really as far as all the way across the country and even internationally. We get a lot of folks that will come down in our spring event from Canada when it's not during a pandemic, of course, when they can travel, but pretty cool to see where all of our fans come from. So now this is what we'll get into a little bit further. So I'm going to kick it over to Julie here to really talk about our $178 million renovation of our venue that completely changed the way that we operate and the entire fan experience out here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. So this project for us, Mark talked about the different renovations and enhancements that had been made to Phoenix Raceway over the years, but really this was the first time the entire facility had been renovated. If you came to an event prior to 2018, you were sitting in wooden bleachers, depending on the area you were in, or metal bleachers. And in certain areas you were facing south and you had a lot of sunshine all day long. And when the weather got a little warm, that was not the best experience, and lots of steps. We didn't have a lot of escalators. And so this project was really about taking the guest experience to a whole new level. This followed a $400 million modernization at Daytona International Speedway, and we were able to learn a lot from our track there as we led into the project here in Phoenix. So the visual that's up on the screen right now, just a bunch of stats about the project itself. Essentially, we touched every single piece of the facility with the exception of the racetrack, and we actually did touch the racetrack. We didn't change the racetrack. All we did was actually relocate the start finish line, and we'll show you a little bit what that looked like in some photos up ahead. It was a $178 million investment. This was all privately funded. A lot of times when you hear about a new stadium or renovations, there's some public funding that's associated with that. That is not the case with this project, as well as actually the project that we did in Daytona and some of our other track improvements. All of the bench seating is gone. Everybody now has their own seats with cup holders. Our fans were very clear that they wanted a cup holder. So everybody's got the cup holders. We've got elevators and escalators now just to make getting into the facility a lot easier. The suites, we had an existing structure grandstand structure that held suites as well as seating. We kept the structure itself, but basically gutted all of that and put in all new suites, renovated the suites, and then put in the whole new seating as well in the grandstands. And then the big piece for us, and what I think is our game changer, was the infield experience. So if you're familiar with NASCAR, you know that this is a sport that's all about immersing our fans in the experience, access all the time. You can walk out onto the tracks and start finish line 30 minutes before the green flag. The drivers are signing autographs when we're not in a pandemic. And you can take pictures. There's driver Q&As happening, just a lot of access to the athletes of the sport. And the infield was really built to take that to a whole new level. The garage area, and we'll show you some pictures, was all about, the garage area for us is like the access to a locker room if you're going to a football game. And you don't always, nobody has access to that. The garages is that area that everybody wanted to get into. And so we created a garage experience where there is a fan area as you walk in, and all that's separating you from the race teams and the drivers working on the cars was a waist-high fence. So now you're actually in that area. Victory Lane. That experience was actually built to bring the fans in. So we built that first and foremost on how to get as many fans into that Victory Lane celebration as possible. And then we decided or tried to figure out how to get the car and the driver in. The other big note for this is Wi-Fi. Obviously, connectivity seems like commonplace. That is not the case in racing. These facilities are massive, and you'll see later we're over 600 acres. To light that up from a Wi-Fi perspective, especially a 1 mile track, that hasn't really been done before. So we are the first facility on the NASCAR circuit to have Wi-Fi from the moment you walk through the gates throughout your entire experience in your seat and in the infield, in the midway, and throughout. And I'll tell you what, not to jinx myself, we have yet to, I think, get one complaint about the Wi-Fi not working or it not being fast. It works incredibly well, no matter how many people we have on property.
We'll go through the construction highlights, but what I wanted to mention is, our relationship with Okland Construction, which was the general contractor on the project. They work hand in hand with Kevin's team at Procore to keep things on time and on budget. So Julie will go through a little bit of kind of the construction highlights here, but Okland and Procore were tied into the project, which was excellent.
Yep, absolutely, and that's a great lead into this timeline. So we got approval for the project itself in November of 2016, and we announced it in January, and shortly after that we were breaking ground. Okland was engaged with us from the start on the project itself, and the unique thing about the renovations both here at Phoenix and in Daytona was we're not building a whole new property next door to the existing one. So you think again about a new stadium being built, typically the new stadium being built somewhere else and the team continues to play in the old stadium until the new stadium is available. We did not have that luxury. And I think if you talk with Okland, that this was probably their biggest challenge, and we called it making sure we were race ready. We were running races. We still kept our 2 NASCAR races running throughout this entire project. And you can see, looking at the schedule, that means 2 years of construction, 3 NASCAR events and an IndyCar event that we were running while under construction. That means certain grandstands were not available. Grandstands were being built at the time. Essentially, our guests were walking into a construction area. And how do we work with the general contractor to create that safe pathway, getting them into the grandstands and back out? Where did the displays go? What does all that look like? And it's really a big puzzle. And we were very successful in this. We learned a lot, again, at Daytona. But so we broke ground in February 2017, and in November, we opened that first phase of the project, which was opening our Curve, which is our single admission hospitality club, as well as our new 33 new suites. Those were the renovated suites that I mentioned previously. And then in March, which these dates all tie into our NASCAR race schedule. So in March of 2018, at that race weekend, we opened Canyon 1. You'll see some photos of that. That is our vertical transportation area. It's 2 structures in the grandstands that have elevators, escalators, and stairways, and it's that vertical transportation into the venue. Then we also opened our new Midway hospitality space, now called the Barn, a 20-ish thousand square foot facility that we can use year round for different events, but then on event weekend is used for hospitality and evening entertainment. And then November 2018 was our grand opening. We opened to a sellout crowd, and it was an incredibly successful weekend. And again, Mark talks about Okland and Procore. My background, actually, I joined the team here at Phoenix Raceway in October of 2018 as we were getting ready to open the new venue. But for the 2 years prior to that, I was part of the construction team. So I worked for our internal design and construction group, worked very closely with Okland, and spent a lot of time in Procore accessing the files and everything that the contractor was using. So as we were doing our checks and meeting with different partners, that was the tool we used throughout the entire project. Mark, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Julie. And another point on this highlight here of the timeline is, from my side, from the business development and sales side, it was phenomenal to be able to, at each stage, bring prospects and new partners out and show people how we're still utilizing the venue to run our NASCAR events. But hey, that's what the new suite's going to look like, and this is our new infield, and here's that. So the ability to kind of sell throughout that project was great. So very quick timeline to basically go from night and day to a new venue, but we did it, and we're running races in a new venue now. So as I mentioned, in November, we actually host the NASCAR Championship weekend. So they'll be coming back to Phoenix this fall. So a big reason why we were able to be awarded the NASCAR Championship weekend is because of this construction project and us having a world-class venue to host that level of an event. And in doing so, not only did we get the event here at our venue, but the entire community of the city of Avondale, which is where the track is located, really came together, and we did tons of events in market this past year in the fall of 2020. One of them was the Avondale Championship Open, which is the golf tournament that we basically doubled the attendance from what they did the year before, in collaboration with some folks in the NASCAR world and our team and whatnot. But really to kind of point out more of the construction and the launch of the new venue, the economic impact of building our venue throughout the actual construction of, thousands of employees coming to work every day on site, and then having that type of, jewel in the desert to run the NASCAR championship events and really tie into that entire week of championship week was great for us. So it's a great example of how a construction project can really launch and kind of boost the local economy here in the west side of Phoenix. Another cool look was some murals around town that the folks did. This is actually at the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Phoenix, just down the road from the track. So we'll share all these pictures as well, but a couple different events, a big food drive that we did in collaboration of the championship week there, where we donated tons of food to folks that needed it. And this was a great touch point just because obviously it was in November, so you're going into the holiday season, and folks that we were able to help out, it's a great thing for us to do. All around the city of Avondale, we had tons of different signage around property, billboards throughout the entire Metro Phoenix area. They even painted some crosswalks right down on Avondale Boulevard, which is pretty cool as you drive into the track. Same thing here with a lot of our different municipalities that we work with. It was really cool to have them be so engaged and willing to kind of help out and promote our event, because we were kind of all in it together with the city of Avondale and bring in the marquee event to Phoenix Raceway. Couple more things here about some different activation that we did all around the local city of Avondale and the west side of town. Here's another look at some fields that are close to Phoenix Raceway where we were putting the logo out there. So really it was just a whole community effort here. Same thing with the local business support with hotels and all that. So kind of hammering home a lot of different cool things and activations that we did around town. But now I'm going to go into a little bit more of what the venue looks like from before and after. So this shot right here is obviously an aerial shot of the entire venue. So I always love to show this because it just shows how massive our footprint is. Our property is over 600 acres, and you can tell that just through the one side of the page is where the actual track is located, but we have tons of property to the west side of our property, that is our RVs and parking and whatnot. So kind of on the bottom piece of this slide here, you can see all the little kind of white caps that are spread throughout there. There's upwards of about 5,000 RV spots that we completely sell out for our marquee events out here. So we basically become one big city. So this shot right here is always great to take a look at. So now I'm going to go through several different before and after photos here. This is what pre-project looked like at Phoenix Raceway. Candidly speaking, this looks like it's from the 80s. Very much not as pretty as we would like it to be, especially as you're approaching Phoenix Raceway coming down Avondale Boulevard. You were essentially looking at the back of grandstands here, and it wasn't too inviting. So as you look at before and after right here, this is that canyon that Julie mentioned. So off to the left of the screen, you can kind of see the staircase that will go up to lead you up to the concourse area. This is a picture taken from our midway display area, but inside of that canyon, there's elevators as well as escalators. So we always like to use the term vertical transportation to get people up into the concourse level and to their seats. And obviously that's important at any venue. When you're selling out the entire venue, you want to make sure that the experience to get to your seats is a great one. And then when you're leaving property, the ability to go back down to the ground level, out to your car, and then head out through the day there.
Mark, before you leave that one, sorry, do you mind jumping back?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I just want to touch a real quick minute on the facade. So you can see on the to the right of the canyon with the graphics, you can see some vertical planks that kind of have a little bit of an ebb and flow, silver and gold. Those are actually our old, I mentioned the bench seating that we had in our old facility. Those are the old seat planks actually. So what we did, trying to reuse as much as possible during the project was incredibly important to us. So the team, we gave them a task of trying to, how do we create a design or cover up some of the steel that you see on the backside of the grandstands. So this was something that they came up with. Those are the old seat planks. There's 2,700 of them along the side of the grandstands. When you look at them from a distance, they are intended to kind of ebb and flow like the Estrella Mountains, which is the mountains that flank us here out at the track. But another opportunity, just again, to reuse what we had. And it's fun for our fans too, because we actually left all the seat numbers and things on it too, so they can walk by and try to find if their seat was hanging up.
And Julie, that's actually a great example of you learn something new every day. The 2700 number that you just threw out, I did not know that. So there we go.
I just
but
pulled
yes,
up our stats.
nice. But yeah, that to mention a little bit more on that, this tower right here, when we demolished this tower, a lot of our fans, you know, it was kind of a sad moment for them because it's an iconic tower. So the ability to actually put those seats and kind of a thank you to the past was a good touch point. So once fans realized that, hey, it's a new venue, but we're still, you know, remembering the past venue and all the different memories that we've had here, was a nice little touch that we were able to work through. This right here is a shot from the roof above our suite level before the project. So when I flip to the next screen here, it's actually the same shot, but you can tell from the infield will be completely different. And then to the left of the screen, you'll notice the grandstand structures will be demolished and we'll have some RV spots there. So really good before and after shots here, basically from the same exact location. So as you look to the left, you can see those RV spots that were essentially those old grandstands. So in NASCAR, the ability to park an RV and camp throughout the weekend and watch the race is a pretty unique experience. And our fans really enjoy that, obviously, to be at the track, just literally inches away from the track, watching the racing action. And then the infield was completely leveled for the most part. A couple things here and there that stayed that we repurposed, but that's that entire infield experience where you can actually get inside the garages, which we'll show you here shortly. So I think one more time I'll show you this look, just because I think it's an awesome before and after here. So before.
And I think too, if you notice how many fans are in the sun, and now in this, how many fans are in the shade. So we actually extended the grandstands into the turns and allowed more of our fans to be in the shade. That was really the whole idea with how we and where we placed the seats. And then you can also notice that pit road was pulled back. In the other photo, it's much closer. It's actually that outside, you can see, like, there you go. Yeah, the wall there. And then we pulled it back. And the reason for that is when we moved the seats into the turn, we had to relocate the start finish line, because the start finish line in the old photo is on the left-hand side in what is now the back stretch. Well, if we did that, we wouldn't have any fans seated around it. So we moved the start finish line. You can't really see it too much in this photo, but around the right-hand side, just past those Geico signs. And by doing that, we wanted to make sure that everybody had a view of that start finish line from no matter what seat you were in. The team set up these really elaborate pit wagons and canopies and everything else. And because they were so far out to the track, all of the fans in these sections right in front of this photo wouldn't have been able to see the start finish line. So we pulled that pit road back and made sure that the sight lines to the start finish line were as good as possible for all of the seats. And in racing, it's a little different. When you go to a race, the top row is the best seat in the house. Whereas if you go to like a football game, I think you want to be as close to the field as possible.
So here's another look at that old start finish line that you see kind of right above the number 42 car there, as well as a look at the iconic tower that we demolished and then demolished all of those grandstands that were on that side of the track. And this is a look straight into the new start finish line when we flipped it to that other side. One of the cool aspects of the new flag stand here was, I believe it was 190 different LED lights that were placed in the shape of a cactus. So you can see that there. So when we go green, the lights go green. When we have a caution, they go to yellow. So really cool. Obviously we're racing in the desert here. So the ability to kind of, use that type of influence to design our flag stand was pretty cool. This is a look at one of our old suites in that grandstand structure there. So as you can see, when we originally built these suites, several years ago, that was when people kind of wanted to sit there and watch the race, and really was more focused on the racing on track rather than the social aspect of being in a suite. But as the years and years went by, we've learned, not just here in NASCAR, but across the entire sports industry, is that suites are more of the social aspect where, yes, you're watching the action on track, but it's also connecting with folks, more of the business to business type communication with other people that are up there on suite level. So the ability for us to essentially build a suite that had a little bit more room to socialize was important to us. So as you can see on this last photo, it was kind of movie theater style seating. And then on the next one, we actually built a platform that basically extended that out a little bit to create this more lounge style structure here. So, selfishly speaking, I actually oversee our suites during event weekends, and it's much easier to sell these suites than the other suites before. So appreciate Julie's input in making these come to life for sure. As Julie mentioned, from a garage aspect, this is what our old NASCAR Cup Series garage looked like. It's really just an area for teams to work and for the drivers to be in there and work on their cars. And you really can't get in there unless you had some type of NASCAR credential. But as we've flipped over to more of a fan experience upgrade in the garage areas, now you actually have the ability to walk inside the NASCAR Cup Series garage, chat with the teams, chat with the drivers, get some autographs. And essentially the only thing that is separating you from the working side of the garage is a waist-high fence that you can see here at the bottom of the screen. So a lot of great shots here that we have internally that we promote this experience. And it's an elevated experience on top of your grandstand ticket. So somebody could buy a grandstand ticket, and then for another $100 or so, you get the ability to go inside the infield and into the garage, which is awesome. One of the cool things that I've seen some of our consumer teams do when they're selling this experience is, say there is someone who is a fan of Martin Truex Jr., who just won the Cup race this past Sunday. We actually have some photos where people are actually, in his garage bay that we can share in real time and say, hey, check out this photo. If you want to meet, that driver, this is the type of experience that you can purchase into. So it's a great setup for us. Our track here in Phoenix has it, as well as in Richmond and in Talladega. Julie, I see you keep unmuting. Is there something that you might want to add in here?
Two things. So one, there is a question on if we took any cues from the Neon Garage in Las Vegas. The answer is definitely yes. So the first infield experience opened in Daytona in 2005. We learned a lot from that, and that actually is what Las Vegas used as inspiration for the Neon Garage. And I think they opened that 2007, 2008 timeframe. And so it was quite a few years before that next infield experience was really created, and that happened both here in Richmond in 2018. But the other piece on this is you can see how deep the garages are now compared to the carport that you saw on the previous slide. And one thing, as we were building this and designing it, we talked with the teams a lot to make sure, one, that it was functional for what they wanted to do, but knowing that this was the first time we were going to actually take fans into the garage area, we wanted to make sure they understood exactly what that meant. And you can see the car is backed out away from the fans. That was something the teams asked us to actually make the garages a little bit deeper. They are very, what's the word? They're very, I don't know. They don't like a lot of people taking photos of their engines. And even other race teams, they're very protective of that. And so they wanted us to be able to still provide the experience, but not have that direct overhead shot of the engine. So that was something that we were able to create for them. And it actually turned out really great, because when you have the car back there, the driver's usually coming in to get their helmet on and get ready for practice. Now you have this great space where you can interact with the fans, the teams that are working at the pit wagon are answering questions while you have the team working on the car. So overall, it worked out really, really well. And the teams have very much enjoyed the interaction within the garages. I think the very first time, nobody was sure what to expect because it was the first time we had let fans in. But it's a really fun experience for both the teams and the fans.
So this shot here is a look at Victory Lane. So in our old venue, really, unless you were part of the media or part of the team or in the industry, it was very difficult to get into this area. As you can see, you know, I always see these pictures now and think of the COVID world, and we're not putting people this close together, but there's tons of people that are packed in a small area. And as you can see, the car is there for the celebration. But this next slide will show what our victory lane looks like now. So much more spread out. All the fans on either side are kind of on these little kind of pits that we have that gives the fans the ability to be a part of that celebration. So this victory lane is literally in the middle of that infield experience. So the infield experience, I believe we sell up to 10,000 tickets in that area. So literally anybody who has that pass can be part of the victory lane celebration. So just like the garage experience with the fans being able to be inside the garage, we wanted to make sure that victory lane was accessible because that's a pretty iconic moment at the end of each race here in Phoenix. So once again, great before and after shots of that celebration there. This slide right here is a look at the barn, which is that roughly 20,000 square foot inside hospitality area that Julie mentioned before. So a couple things on this. Before the project, if we had, well, one, during our NASCAR events, we did sell this type of fan upgrade hospitality, but it was at a tent. So each race we were building, a large tent with bringing in tables and chairs that we would rent. Huge expense for us each event, but obviously the ability to sell a fan experience was important for us. So we knew that going through this project, we needed to figure out a way to actually build a permanent structure for that type of hospitality experience for our fans during our events. But on the flip side, when we're not running our NASCAR events and we're still operating private event rentals, weddings, any type of event that you might think would go to, a ballroom at a resort or a hotel. Now we have the ability to put that in our portfolio and essentially sell venue rentals in here. So Julie, if you want to kind of touch on how this all came about and the barn concept, I think that's an excellent story that we just launched here within the past year and a half or so.
Absolutely. So this structure, when we first opened it, it was a very blank sheet of paper inside, and that was intentional because we knew we wanted to do a lot of rentals and we didn't want to create a space that was red and the partner's brand that wanted to use the space, their colors were blue and yellow. And so as we went through the first year, we definitely, there was room for improvement, and a gentleman by the name of Jeff Gordon, if anybody's a race fan, hopefully you've heard that name. He is a NASCAR Hall of Famer, won a few championships. He came to us with this idea about creating an entertainment venue at the racetrack for campers each night. And if you've been to Phoenix, Mark showed you the overhead. We have almost 5,000 campsites, so a lot of people that are staying on property with us. And this was a great first opportunity for him to kind of create that experience for the fans. He had this vision for the barn. This was Jeff's brand, this was something that he came to us with in his head on what he wanted it to look like, what he wanted it to feel like, the type of entertainment inside. And he allowed us to make that happen. He came out one day it was January of last year, and we had a lot of barn board samples and different furniture and paint colors, a little bit of everything. And he literally has hand selected everything that's in this space. He's a partner with us now on the barn and the vision. We opened it last March. We were the last race actually to run with a full crowd prior to the pandemic. And it was our first weekend opening, the evening parties, very successful. went really, really well. Look forward to getting back to that in the future. And it just opens us up to, as Mark mentioned, a lot more opportunity for the rental space throughout the year as well, because now you have the building that has some character and you can do a lot with when you're inside. And yes, the wood, Paulette's asking, it is from old barns. It's from a 2 horse farms in Kentucky, actually.
See, there you go. Another thing that I did not know about the track that I work at. Very cool. Well, that's the overall presentation of our venue and our project. But what I'd like to do next is, and I believe Paulette will be, she may have already even linked this to the meeting invite here, but right after we debuted the project, Julie and the guest services team and our ticketing team actually worked with this company to basically do a virtual tour. So I would recommend after this, if you're interested to learn more about Phoenix, or you know, even if you're looking to buy a grandstand ticket to come check out one of our NASCAR events, you can literally go to the exact section or close to the exact section and the exact row and see what your view of track would look like. So I'll just hit a couple different areas here because I think this tool is exceptional for us to kind of showcase the venue a little bit. So as you can see on this side of the screen here, tons of different areas. So if you wanted to go to see the start finish line on track, you come here and you click start finish line, and then boom, you're right there. So very cool. As you can see, there's the cactus flag stand right here. You can kind of twirl all the way around, check out the different seating areas and whatnot, look into the infield. Like I mentioned, the ability, if you did buy a ticket, to go here to this virtual tour and say you bought a ticket in section 128 and you are right around row 25, you click that, and then this is what you're actually going to be seeing on track when you know, the NASCAR events are taking place. So that is pretty unique as well. As you look at the infield experience, you can go here. This is that victory lane. It's a little bit outdated here, but obviously it'll get you the sense of how you're kind of walking through. Down here is that kind of pit area, and then everything behind it is where fans can gather and be a part of that celebration. Also in here, you can go over to where we have the media center, which is pretty unique. So in this room right here, in these windows, it's called the driver's meeting room. Before every race, the drivers and crew chiefs, they actually have to be at this meeting. So it's the one area where everybody's all together. So essentially right behind this fence line is kind of a red carpet walk where all the drivers are coming into that meeting. So it's really packed area when folks are looking to meet their favorite drivers. And then the thing that is really interesting to me is our camping, huge campground out there, and you can go to essentially all the way out to your spot. So I don't even know how long it took them to kind of map this all out, Julie, but I mean, you can count every single spot out here, which is pretty unique. But I would recommend and urge you to go check this out because it's a phenomenal tool for us, like I said. But now I'm going to stop my screen here, and we'd love to open it up for questions. I know we had a few that probably came through while I was going through the presentation, but Paulette, I'm not sure if you might want to kind of moderate a little bit, but happy to answer anything that you guys might have.
Yeah, it looks like I think we answered the things that came in. So if anyone has any questions, you know, feel free to put them into the chat. Of course, I had a ton of questions as we were going through that. Thank you for explaining the barn, the wood. I thought that was really cool, and you knew where it came from. I've seen places where they sell wood like that, so it's really, really fun. How is that? What was the software used to create that virtual experience? Because I was clicking through it. It was really, really cool to see all the different spots in the fields. I was really, you know, I like the outdoor areas. How did Procore help with that, or is that different? Did they take drones? I mean, do you have any idea how that was all created?
Yeah, Julie, if you want to talk to it more, I know it's Pinpoint is the program.
Yeah, the technology is called Pinpoint. It's a 360-degree camera they spent about a week out here on property just capturing all the photos, and then some of them needed to be stitched together to then create the different areas that was put up on site, but the software itself was called Pinpoint.
I would definitely say click through it because it's a lot of fun. Here's a question. How many fans can the track hold for each race?
You want me? We have 42,000 seats in the grandstands itself. And then the infield experience is an incremental, like we sell standing room only or access to that in addition to the grandstands. And then we didn't really touch on this, but in some of the photos outside of turns 1 and 2, you saw the hillside. So one thing that makes us very unique is we actually, Monument Hill or Rattlesnake Hill, depending on what you know it as, is out there between 1 and 2, and we actually have tiers in it. And you can bring your own chair and you can watch from the hillside if you like. So we put a few thousand people up there as well. And then Mark talked about, again, all the campers that we have here. We have some that just come and hang out with us all week and don't even come through the ticket gate. They just want to be part of the event and enjoy the campgrounds.
It looks like a lot of great spaces in there. I really like the differences from the old that you showed from the old, the suites to the new suites and how those have changed over the years, and people want to experience these, as different ways that they used to. How has the racetrack adapted to allow a small number of fans to watch the race safely?
It's a great question. This was something, so I mentioned we were the last race last March to run with a full crowd, and 4 days later is when the NBA canceled their first game, and then everything kind of snowballed from there. And so NASCAR was the first major sport back to competition. We had 7 weeks off. And actually during that time, we quickly pivoted and had our drivers racing iRacing, which is a very realistic simulation. They were in their own homes on their own sim rigs, actually racing against each other. Those were broadcast on Fox. But we were able to bring the sport back after a 7-week hiatus. And then we were actually the first sport to bring back fans as well, which we did in June safely. So for us, we had the benefit and the luxury, honestly, of learning from all of our counterparts at the other tracks leading into the NASCAR Championship weekend in November. So we ran with a reduced capacity, about 20%. We work really closely with state and local officials for approvals. All of our protocols had to be approved, and those things include, obviously, masks being required, social distancing, pods in all the grandstands. It was a contactless, cashless experience, temperature checks at the gate, a lot of different things. It was really a very different experience for our fans, especially given the fact that it was the first championship weekend. It was, we announced championship in March of 2019, and so a year and a half of build up to an event that was essentially sold out when the pandemic hit. Our season ticket holders were able to join us for that weekend, and it was still a really good event. I certainly wish we had everybody with us, but we were able to execute the event as safely as possible. And same protocols were just in place this past weekend for our March event.
Here's another question. Did you use AutoCAD, Revit, or some other sort of program to design and render the floor plan for the track?
Oh, that's a good question. I have used, the design team has used, well, both of those I have seen and used. Those of us, I was honestly, I was mostly in Procore pulling down files and using those as I moved around. But the construction and architect team used a whole lot of different things to model the facility.
Yeah, and I know, Julie, just to chime in a little bit more, on the kind of camping side of things, I know they use AutoCAD a lot out there because I just recently requested those files to send to someone else we're working with. So I'm sure it was AutoCAD amongst others for sure.
How does the local climate impact the design of the track and fan experience for an outdoor venue like this?
It's a great question. So we talked about the location of the grandstands. That was a really important piece for us as we were designing the new facility. even though March and November, which are historically our NASCAR event weekends, are milder temperatures, we have had, I remember I was here, I think it was the last race we had with the full, what was the front stretch grandstands, and it got into the 90s, and sitting in that sunlight all day, and again, walking up and down 40s, at least 40 rows of bleachers to get to your seat, was just not a positive experience. So for us, getting our fans in shade was priority number one. Now, most of the time at the start of the race, about 80% of our grandstands will be in the shade. And that has been a huge impact. And then you think about the infield experience too, just being able to drainage, was important. We spent a lot of time on drainage. That O'Reilly area that you saw has a significant amount of drainage underneath it, to make sure that infield experience, if we do get weather, which surprisingly we did get some in the desert here on Friday for race weekend, that we are prepared for that. And that's the thing, whenever you're planning these construction projects, you're planning for that 100-year storm. You're not planning for, what's going to happen tomorrow. That was eye-opening for me. I remember the drainage discussion like it was yesterday, because it was quite animated on why do we need this, but you don't know, and you have to plan for that 100-year storm, because anything can happen.
Yeah, I think another thing that was interesting for me to learn a little bit, because just like Julie, I've been around the sport and with the company for a little over 10 years. So in, I believe, 2011, we repaved Daytona International Speedway. And obviously we haven't repaved this track in a little while, but in that experience, I learned that the actual asphalt that we use to pave tracks is different at each location. So in Phoenix, the mixture of the asphalt, and I'm a dumb sales guy, so I don't know exactly what it is, but the mixture of the asphalt here in Phoenix is different than what we would pave at our track in upstate New York, and vice versa down to Daytona or something like that. So that was always interesting for me to hear as well.
It is a polymer modified asphalt, Mark, with an elevated softening point.
Nice.
So basically it means it doesn't melt.
Very important in Phoenix, for sure. That doesn't melt. Here's a good one. What's your personal favorite part of the track post renovation, and why?
I think for me, it's our suites. Selfishly, again, that's because that's kind of my my realm and my wheelhouse of selling suites for our NASCAR events. But I've heard outside of the industry, in the industry, that our seats rival, the best of the best. And that's even coming from folks who have suites at Daytona International Speedway. So this is kind of a two-part answer here, but I also think that really the infield experience tied into the suite experience, the ability to, within just a short walking distance through our pedestrian tunnel, to be inside the garage and then back up to your suite to go grab, a cocktail and then watch the race. The overall experience here in Phoenix, I think is top notch, because not to knock on Daytona, they're awesome, of course, and Daytona 500 is the Super Bowl of our sport. But if you're going to the infield from the suites on the grandstand side, you have to take a tram, and it takes you a little while to get there. So they're a 2.5 mile track. We're just a mile track. So that's obviously why that is. But to connect all the different pieces of the experience is what I always talk about here in Phoenix.
Yeah, I'd say for me, the infield experience is our game changer. It's what sets us apart. And even if you've been to Vegas's Neon Garage or Daytona's infield fan zone, the whole idea was to take that to the next level. If I had to pick one location inside the infield, the victory lane, that was a lot of work, and just thinking about the construction side and the design side, and how do we get as many fans in victory lane as possible. That's very different from any other victory lane on the circuit, because usually they pull into victory lane, it's just the team and some sponsors that have access to it. We wanted the entire, as many fans as possible to be part of it and create that celebratory atmosphere. You win this race and you want to celebrate, and you just have your team there. Now to have the fans there, and you saw the picture, it is just the best experience. Our drivers have said it's the best victory lane on the circuit. They truly enjoy it. They're interacting with the fans. They're throwing out hats, And we really, it's a party down there now. It's celebrating the fact that they just won the race, and they're doing it with thousands of their closest race fan friends.
It looks really fun, for sure. I'd like to tour all of those parts. So you mentioned that, the barn, that was the vision of the person, that's partnering with you. Did you work with like architects to do that? Or did the person, he came in and he had his ideas? How did that all come, how did that get built and incorporated into the stadium?
So the structure itself was there, and so what we did was really work with Jeff on the interior design that he had in mind. And we did lean on our team at the design and construction team in Daytona just to help us with some of the details and the specifics, just to make sure as we're putting things in, things you don't always think about, like power placements and lights. And we did have to add power because of some lighting that he wanted to have, and just different things like that. So we did pull in some of our internal team, but most of that we did on our own, based on, again, his vision. He had this very clear picture of what he wanted that interior to look like, and he did a nice job sharing that with us, and we were able to pull samples and get him comfortable with the overall direction. Like the hedge walls that are in there, we actually built those ourselves. Our ops team built them. So we've got a really talented ops team that can do a little bit of everything.
That's very cool.
I've got a quick question. I mean, Julie and Mark, you guys seem like you have some of the most awesome jobs that I've ever heard of. How did you, get started working on racetracks? I mean, was this always something you wanted to do? Did you go to school for it? I mean, what was your sort of career path to get you to this point?
Yeah, so I'll go first. I'm actually born and raised in Daytona Beach, Florida. So even when I was 4 and 5 years old, I was carrying the cooler for my dad full of Busch beer to go and watch the races there. So it's kind of, in my blood, if you will. I went to school at University of Florida and studied sports management. And then the last 15 credits of my degree there was an internship. I was fortunate enough to have an internship at the track at Daytona International Speedway in the special events department, which is no longer a department there. But basically, I worked for free, moving different fencing and signage and different stuff around for the entire summer for the Coke Zero 400. Coke Zero Sugar 400 is what it's called now. But and then from there, I actually moved into part-time in our ticket sales department there at Daytona, and then was fortunate enough to get pulled back into that special events team full-time. So I've kind of came from the operational side of the business at Daytona. And then, Kevin, you mentioned I was at Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, California out there near you guys, facility sales. So when we didn't have our NASCAR or IndyCar events, it was my job to keep the track busy year round, week in and week out. And then, made the move all the way to the dark side of corporate sales and partnerships. I very much enjoy the sales aspect of the job. And I think from my operational kind of background, it's cool to kind of sell a lot of these partnerships and experiences and then actually execute and build them out and deliver those experiences. So that's kind of how I got to this seat today.
Mine is a little bit different. I grew up on a dairy farm in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a ton of short tracks. So my dad was a race fan. I grew up a race fan. I loved watching races. I was a Dale Jarrett fan growing up. And when I went to college, because I grew up on a dairy farm, agriculture was really all I knew. So I went to school for agriculture, animal genetics, actually. And spent 3 years in that program. After spending 2 summers in Madison, sitting behind a microscope, I decided, yeah, this is not for me. I need to find something else to do. So that's when I really started thinking about racing, and it was just because I love the sport. And I'm like, man, marketing might be kind of fun. And my college had just opened a new agriculture marketing major degree. So I actually pivoted, finished out some marketing credits, and graduated with a ag marketing degree. And at that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to work in racing. And I sent my resume out to all the racetracks around the country. And back then they sent rejection letters. So I still have them. I have a folder full of rejection letters telling me thanks, but no thanks. And one of them is from Phoenix Raceway. One of them is from Daytona International Speedway, and 2 places that I have now worked. So I just continued to network and wanted to let people know that I wanted to be in racing. I volunteered wherever I could in the racing industry, and a friend of a friend of a friend of a coworker had let my coworker know that there was an opening at Watkins Glen International on the PR side, and they were calling her because they thought she might be interested. She wasn't, but she knew that I was a race fan and that I wanted to ultimately work in racing. So I joined Watkins Glen in 2001 at an entry-level role in the PR department, and spent 4 years at Watkins Glen before moving to Daytona. We're all owned by the France family. So I was able to move to Daytona, join the marketing team down there. I spent 12 years with Daytona. When I left, we had just opened Daytona Rising, the new venue. I was the vice president of marketing. That's when I traded in the marketing hat for the construction hat and joined the Phoenix Raceway project team. And really, I spent a lot of time during the Daytona project working on the construction. I kind of fell into a project manager role. And that's how it led to the full-time role on the Phoenix project. And then in 2018, I was named the president here at Phoenix Raceway. So a little bit different.
Those are great. Those are great stories. Thank you for sharing those. I really enjoyed hearing those. Well, it looks like there's no more questions. It's 3 o'clock. So I think, or 3 o'clock here in California from wherever you're signing in. So thank you everybody for joining. Thanks again to Procore, and thank you guys for, Julia, Mark, thank you so much for coming on. This has been wonderful. I know lots of our teams will be using this, and we definitely hope to get to that raceway soon. We have a team in Phoenix that I've already told, and we're already, planning our field trip. So be out there soon for sure. So.
Absolutely. Well, it was our pleasure. Paulette, Kevin, thank you for teeing this up. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us anytime. And if you ever want to come on, check out a NASCAR event in Phoenix, you know who to call.
Oh yeah, we know that we're going. I think Procore and ACE are already going to be there. So save one of those suites so we can get in there, at least to tour it. All right. Thank you so much,
Thanks
you guys.
again.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.